everyone. My name is Rufus Thibodeaux. Welcome to another episode of Promise and Purpose, where we talk about the transformative power of God's Word and how that links to us discovering our purpose and unlocking our untapped potential. Today, I'm here with Roy Abbott, and we're going to just continue the conversation about how aligning yourself with the promises of God leads to a deeper understanding of your purpose and the potential that lies on the inside of you. So Roy, thanks for joining me here today. I know that you had last time we tried to connect, you were fighting some symptoms, but I'm glad you're feeling better and we're ready to roll. You doing all right?
Feeling much better. Thank you so much. And thanks for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. So let's get into it, man. Why don't you just start by introducing yourself and tell a little bit about your background and the work that you do.
Sure. Well, I'm 64, married for 44 years to Kim.
Wow. Okay.
Got 3 kids, 8 granddaughters. I've
Wow.
spent the last 30 years of my life working with men, as
Okay.
we'll talk about today.
Yeah.
And God, in his sense of humor, said, you need some more work with women. You need to understand them better. I'm going to give you 8 granddaughters.
Wow, that's serious. So
yeah.
what are their ages?
They range from 16 to 3-year-old twins.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, they keep you busy. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you, I've got 4 kids. They're all grown, but I got 2 boys and 2 girls. And when it comes to girls, my guys, I love them all the same, but my guys, I'm like, hey, you guys can get married. I'm all right with that. Nobody has any relationships right now, but yeah, you guys can get married. But my girls, you guys got to stay here. You know what?
That's right.
You know what I mean? And any discussion about guys, I'm like, I don't want to even hear it. Just stay with me. So you feel the same way?
I do. I do. I have 2 sons and a daughter. And there was definitely a double standard in my home growing up.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
I was very protective of my daughter.
Is she the youngest of the crew?
She is, and I'm very protective of my granddaughters. The oldest one, who's 16, is a wonderful volleyball player, great kid, great student. She's a believer.
Yeah.
And so it's exciting to watch high school volleyball. At the same time, I'm trying to help the 3-year-old twins get their shoes on,
Oh my gosh, that's
so
crazy. Yeah,
quite a range.
So is it true to say about grandchildren? I mean, is it completely different than the kids? I mean, in terms of how is it? That's what you're finding difference?
Way different, brother.
So what's the difference? You sound okay. That was a little ambitious.
I really wish I could tell you what the difference is.
Okay.
But I know that for me personally, I'm way more chill. I'm not so uptight about stuff, and they just want to play and they just want to love you and be loved by you.
Sure.
There isn't a lot of posturing going on.
Okay.
And you're not trying to rush somewhere to get, as you're raising them.
Yeah.
And especially in today's culture, you're just rushing to get everywhere and to make it all happen.
Okay. Nice.
With the granddaughters, I mean, they want to color, or they want to play at the playground, or they want to play with their Legos or whatever, and it's just a much more chill situation.
That's nice. So are you still working? Are you retired at this point, or?
I am still working.
Okay.
So my career, out of high school, joined the Marine Corps for a couple of years. Just did one enlistment.
Okay.
Got married to my high school sweetheart while I was in.
Nice.
We did our time in the service. It came back to Illinois, which is where we grew up.
Okay.
I worked for my father in his small town bakery for a little while out of the military, and then early on got hired on at a nuclear power plant in materials management.
Okay.
Spent 18 years in nuclear power.
Okay.
Another 7 years in other power plants after that.
Okay.
And in 2006, at 46 years old, launched our own 501c3, a ministry for the local church and helping them develop ministry to men. So
Really?
my
Okay.
focus has been men for
Okay.
30 years.
Nice. All right. So we'll get into that. But I have to say now, 44 years of marriage, man, that's incredible. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
My parents used to say, my father died about 8 years ago, and they would have been married like 49 years. My wife and I have been married for 34 years, but they used to compare the years of marriage with years of life. So if you've been married 5 years, then it's like a 5-year-old, 18, it's like an 18-year-old. So
Yeah.
44 years, man, that's like a grown man. I mean, you're
So we've been together for 50.
wow.
So all
Okay.
right.
Nice.
So I mean, we met in junior high school.
Yeah.
She thought I was pretty squirrely in junior high, but we started dating before we had a driver's license.
Wow.
So yeah, so we got married at 20 years old, and at 34, 33,
Yeah.
the wheels came off of our relationship.
Okay.
We both kind of entered into the marriage like you do at 20 without dealing with any of the issues that we had in life. We just
Sure.
we were two kids.
Yeah, right,
Really,
exactly. You didn't know what your issues were, right? Just yeah.
No. So they really started to materialize. And of course, in our case, I was the more, I was the problem.
Okay. All right.
I had a very serious anger problem.
Okay.
And that anger would come out in different ways. It manifested into full-blown rage at
Okay.
times.
All right.
And nearly destroyed our marriage.
Wow. Okay.
After 13 years of marriage, she just finally looked at me and said, we can't do this anymore. You either got to get this figured out or we're just done. And we're from small town America. We're from a little town here in Illinois where we grew up in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. And divorce just was, you just didn't get divorced.
Got it. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So by the goodness and grace of God, my heart was softened enough to where I entered into some counseling. We entered into some marriage counseling. And we got a lot of that figured out over a few years' time.
Yeah.
Had a lot of anger toward my father.
Okay.
Often very typical with men, father wounds.
Yeah.
Just issues with dad that I really had to work out. I wasn't. My wife and my middle son were the objects of the anger and the rage, but they weren't the reason for it. I wasn't mad at them.
Sure.
They just got the brunt of the garbage.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, good for you that you went to counseling and even to be able to admit that, because and by the way, I mean, this is a safe place to talk, and as we're talking before we got started, I started this because I wanted to give guys a place to vent and share their challenges and things they've overcome and lessons they've learned along the way, because other guys need to hear that, because guys don't talk. Matter of fact, regarding counseling, I mean, so my dad was a pastor. We grew up in church, and therapy was never an option. We never talked about therapy. I mean, and not that we didn't need it. Lord knows we needed the help. And when my wife and I first went to couples counseling, man, it was like somebody turned on the lights, because we got married in our 20s too. I was 20 and she was 21, and you don't know anything. I mean, I literally went from my bedroom in my home that I grew up in to an apartment with my wife. So it's like, what do I know about, I was thinking about, when I look back at some of those pictures, I look like a little kid. I was like, hey, somebody should have stopped us. What we need some lessons. So tell me, and I've experienced the same thing, anger, and again, like you said, it's the people that you love that get the brunt of it.
Yeah.
And so you went to therapy yourself, and you went to
Yeah.
therapy, couples therapy.
Yeah. 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 Well, I had damaged our marriage so deeply that we needed help putting that back together.
Okay.
Um, you know, there was, I'll tell you just a quick story of
Sure,
really
please do.
where the turning point was for us,
Okay.
where it really made a turn. Um, I was sitting across from her in the counselor's office, and our counselor was kind of off to our side.
Okay.
And I'm looking at my wife, and I'm like irritated.
Hmm.
I've apologized to her for the umpteenth time.
Sure.
She's sitting across from me, and she's just quietly just crying.
Wow.
She's got tears she's wiping away and just quietly crying. And I looked at the counselor and I said, I've told her 100 times that I'm sorry. Can't we just move on? We
Wow.
obviously have other things that we need to deal with.
Yeah.
Can't she just accept that I said I was sorry? And Earl, our counselor, he said, Roy, I want you to look at me a second. And
Wow.
he had me look him in the eye, and he said, listen, this isn't going to change until now. Look at Kim a minute. He said, do you see what's happening in her right now, and the tears in her eyes and the pain? He said, your relationship is not going to change until you understand the pain that your wife is in. She's not ready to move on.
Hmm.
She needs to process this pain
Yeah.
that you've inflicted.
Right.
And that was the turning point, because that was a moment that God illuminated for me. That's the answer for me.
Okay.
I have to shut my mouth, listen, hear her, feel the pain as she's expressing it. And when I began to be able to relate with her.
Okay.
And just feel what she was going through. That became our turning point for us.
Okay. Okay.
In our relationship.
So you saw what was actually going on. I mean, you could see the problem. And so what happened from there? I mean, what was the sort of the next steps?
Just weeks and weeks and months of listening.
Okay. Wow.
Shut my mouth, because I had all the answers.
Of course we do. Right. Yeah.
I was 34, 35 years old at the time. Arrogant, self-centered. God had a lot of work to do in me just to break those things down in me. And little by little, they started to, as we revealed where this was coming from for me.
Yeah.
Peeling back the layers of the onion.
Yeah, of course.
I started to discover she wasn't really the problem. It was Dad, and it was just this, man, almost just this hatred. I just felt hatred toward him. And my father was not. It was more emotional kinds of things. There was a lot of teasing, a lot of putting down and things like that from Dad. He wasn't an abusive person in terms of hitting or anything like that.
Sure.
But just degrading me. And back then, 60s and 70s, everybody had hair down past their shoulders, even the guys. And a lot of comments about that.
Really? So is your dad still living today?
No.
Okay. So did you get a chance to talk to him? Go ahead. Go. What were we gonna say?
I did, brother. I did.
Oh, good.
I did. As Earl walked me through these phases of feeling that pain and understanding where that was coming from. Now, mind you, this was biblical counseling. I'm not trying to tell you something that was pop psychology.
Yeah, I'm with it. Sure.
He was leading me. God was opening my eyes to what was happening. And eventually, I got to a point. Earl looked at me one day and he said, Roy, I want you to understand something. your dad isn't going to get it. He doesn't get it. He didn't grow up knowing what was wrong with him. And all he did was pass on what happened to him in his life.
Yeah, sure.
You know, he was wounded just like you are. He said, if you want a relationship with your father, you're going to have to be the one to go after it.
Wow. Okay.
Well, at that time, my oldest son was heading off into college.
Okay.
And we were going to college football games. And my son played football in college.
Okay.
And my dad and I would drive for 6 hours at a time together in the car.
Okay.
To a ball game. And we had lots of windshield time. And I was nervous about asking him. I was nervous about talking about things that had happened. But once God gave me that courage to begin to address it, Dad was open. You know, he at first he kind of bristled a little bit because he was having to confront some things himself.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But after a while, after a number of these conversations, he apologized.
Wow. Okay.
We ended when he passed away, we were on good speaking terms. We were becoming friends, you know.
Wow.
More than we had in our past. I'll tell you, probably one of the key elements of my father. Am I talking too much?
No, this is phenomenal. I'm loving it. Yes. Yes. Love it.
I was 15 years old. My dad and mom had come home from a night of partying with their friends. He was standing outside the kitchen window. I was inside the house in the kitchen, and he started to taunt me, started to tease me and call me names. And I don't even know for sure what was said, but it fueled so much in me. I just hated him in that moment. I was 15 years old.
Yeah. To
the point where I ran out the door into the snow and I tackled him. Now, my dad was 6'2". Wow. I was about 5'2". Okay. I mean, I was maybe 5'5", 5'6". Yeah. So, and he easily overpowered me.
Sure.
And we fell in the snow, wrestling around a little bit. And he ended up having a hold on me where he obviously was overpowering me. In that moment, I began to cry. And I looked up at him with a headlock. He had a headlock on me.
Yeah, yeah.
I looked up at him, and all I could think to say was, Dad, I love you. I love you. I needed his love and his affirmation so badly that even in the snow, wrestling around with him in this hatred, in this place of, I don't know if it was true hatred. Yeah. But I really felt it, you know, strong. Okay. He looked at me and he just awkwardly just kind of, you know, he had some to drink, and he just said, I love you too. And it let go of me, and that was about it. That's what we long for, brother. We long for our fathers to say, I'm proud of you and I love you.
Yeah. Wow.
You know, you're good. You're good. I love you, son. You know, and not to put you down and degrade you.
Yeah.
Do you follow what I'm saying?
Oh, 100%, 100%, Roy. And that is so powerful, man. And I think it's pretty common, you know, that those issues that you have with parents. You know, I've said to my wife a lot of times that the two groups of people that have really done a lot of damage are fathers, okay, but also pastors. To people's lives, you know, because which is sort of like a father figure. But I remember that so my dad I had a great dad, you know. Now, my issue that I had was with my mother, playing favorites between my brother and I. And short story, I said long story short, I guess, is that I was supposed to take over the ministry, but that was never discussed. So it's kind of one of those things, it's assumed that was going to happen. So I didn't do it. I had no interest in it. My brother flew his family down. He was living in Chicago, which I love Chicago. We actually lived in Chicago for a while. We love it. He flew his family down. They took over the ministry, so he was sort of the, the knight in shining armor. I was sort of the black sheep, and so that kind of how it went. But my dad he was a great dad, and I remember when he led me to the Lord. At 8 years old, and when I remember Jesus, the scripture, I believe it's Mark 7, I believe it is, where he's saying, if you being evil know how to do good things for your children, how much more can your heavenly Father, how much more will heavenly Father do good things for you? I thought, man, if God is like my dad, man, I'm good. I love him. Yeah, and I took that relationship for granted, that I had a great dad, because everybody doesn't have a great dad. Like you said, your relationship with dad, and thank God that it got better, and thank God that you did what it took to discover what the issue was. You got counseling, talk with your dad, solve the problem. Man, that is phenomenal, because there's lots of people out there. I mean, and the wives especially, that are wishing that the husbands knew and did something about them, because they're the ones that are suffering. Because I don't know what the percentage of time is, but usually it's us that's the problem. And so so I mean, and when you finally understand the problem and see, like, wow, look at what I'm doing to my wife. I mean, with my with my wife, I was an entrepreneur for most of my career, and so there was a lot of ups and downs. I was in real estate, and so when we were on the feast, when we were on a feast time, that was great, it was phenomenal. But when we were on a famine time, man, it was horrible. And I made a promise. I said, our promise, our agreement with each other was, hey, you take care, you make the home. No, how is it? No, I'll make the living, and you make the living worthwhile. That was sort of our agreement. So she was at home with the kids, and you know what, Roy? She kept her end of the deal, and I didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, but I had to come to grips with the fact that I didn't do that. I dropped the ball. It was my responsibility. And so once we got into counseling, this was many years later. We didn't go into counseling until, maybe a couple of years ago. So maybe 32 years. A lot of stuff that I learned, man, I messed up a lot of stuff. And thank God that she was willing to stick with me and work it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so because of that, man, I owe it to her to get together. And so I worked on it, and I'm a better guy now than I was. And she'll attest to that. But it took work, but it also took what you found. It's like I had to discover what the problem was, and so a lot of guys don't. So anyway, I'm cutting you off, man, but that is incredible.
Yeah. No, I was clueless. Our world is full of grown up little boys.
Oh my gosh, what a term. What
You know
a
what I'm
term.
saying?
Yes. I know exactly what you're saying.
They're in the bars, they're in the you name it. They're at the ball games, they're in the bowling alleys.
Yeah.
They're stuck back in a place where the wound occurred, where
and it's sad. It's really sad.
It's very sad. And rather than deal with the issues, rather than digging in and figuring out what's going on, many are just clueless. And unfortunately and sadly, many are clueless.
Yeah.
I'm grateful to our Heavenly Father for illuminating that in me.
100%. Yeah.
My little brother and I, my mom was saved when we were very little.
Okay.
And at 12 or 13 years old, in 1972, Mom took my brother and I to the movie theater, and we got to watch The Cross and the Switchblade.
Oh my gosh.
An old movie.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah.
And afterwards, a pastor got up in this theater, got up on the stage, and he just he gave an altar call, man.
Wow.
And my brother and I just couldn't wait to get to the altar. We just gave our lives to the Lord at 13.
Fantastic.
So 20 years went by as God just watched me just do it my way.
Yeah.
He just kind of let me do it my way.
Yeah.
And 33 and 34 and 35, he began to just, as I began to be more open to doing it his way.
Yeah. I love that. So how does that connect with the ministry you talked about, man?
Yeah.
What you guys do? So do you deal
Uh,
with men, these kind of issues? Tell me about that.
so in 1994, right during this time,
Okay.
God would have it that my brother drugged me to Boulder, Colorado to go to Promise Keepers
Oh, okay.
in 1994, early on in their ministry. I went into that conference not wanting to be there, not wanting to do this. And at my lowest point in my marriage, hadn't told a soul. And God changed the course of my life at that conference.
Wow.
Man, he turned me, he spun me around 180 degrees. I ran to the altar on that Friday night and rededicated my life to him. Gave my life for the first time, if it wasn't authentic, when I was 13.
Yeah, right.
But sent me home with two specific things. One, rebuilding my marriage.
Okay.
Number two, he deposited in my heart a passion to help other men.
Wow.
Now, I didn't know that at first. I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, all I knew is I just wanted to share what I just experienced with others.
Yeah. Sure.
That began to grow and grow and grow as I got involved with the ministry of Promise Keepers and began to train and teach for them.
Okay.
And build up men's ministries in local churches and be with men and just share my story, share my life struggles. I was just in my 30s and 40s when this was happening. I wasn't an expert, but I was sharing my testimony.
Yeah, right.
And what I was learning and that passion for helping men. And in particular, in the local church.
Okay.
There was one thing early on that Promise Keepers had right was the local church.
Okay.
And so my heart and passion is to see the local church be strengthened by having healthy, godly men leading in their church. And so that's just been my passion for the last 30 years. It's just been helping men. I do it today. I disciple men here in my home, one-on-one, or at church, or go talk to a whole men's leadership team about developing ministry in their church.
Gotcha. And do you do that through the nonprofit you started, or is that a different thing?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
What's the connection there?
It's all on my own. Our ministry is called Focal Point Ministries.
Okay.
Believe it or not, that name came from a very non-spiritual thing. I was on my elliptical machine working out really hard one day, and I was watching this video about the Bulls and Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And Jordan happened to be going up for one of those crazy buckets that he made.
Yeah.
And the announcer said, and this man was the focal point of this team. And I thought, that's it, Lord, that's the name.
Nice. I like it.
MJ, right?
Yeah, I like it. So, of course, it's Chicago. I mean, are you a big sports guy?
Yeah.
Are you? Okay. I'm not. It's interesting. I just am. So when the conversation goes to sports, a lot of times I'm like a deer in headlights. This is not my, it's not my thing. But man, we are way off script, and I'm loving every minute of it. This is phenomenal. So why don't you tell me, as we sort of kind of bring it to a close here, what would be the one promise, Bible promise, that really has been instrumental, and it might be more than one. And for me, I got lots, but that's been instrumental in helping you to become the man that you are today?
Well, the key word to me is, you said the word promise.
Yeah.
God tells us that he who began a good work in you will carry it out to completion.
Yes.
The one word that I hated the most in this counseling time we had was called process. I wanted things fixed now. Of
course.
Like my wife, like our relationship. And when I finally figured out that this was going to be a process I was going to have to work at,
Yeah.
and that God was going to be refining me and, shaving off those rough edges for maybe a long time to come.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 64 and still blowing it sometimes, brother.
Of course, right. We're human, right? Yeah.
The promise that he began a good work in me will carry that out to completion.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of things that we can share with men.
Yeah.
Lots of God's promises. All of his promises are yes and amen.
That's right.
But for me personally, that promise, that he's got me, that he and I together are on this journey, and that I'm a work in progress.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, God, he brought Jesus through a whole lineage of imperfect people that were just screw ups in a lot of ways. I mean, people that were damaged goods. And so, so if we have issues in our lives, which we do, I mean, we're in the right place because it uses imperfect people. So no, I love that. And it's great to know that that we can trust his promises. And like I said, there's so many of them, but that's a great one that, he started it and he's going to continue it. I mean, we can drop the mic on that. That's, what I was going to say, and so we'll sort of bring it to a close here because I'd love to keep you another hour here, but I would love to talk with you again because I think that we have so many things in common. I mean, I was trying my best not to jump in there, but issues with anger that I've had to deal with, and putting it all on your wife, and having your wife be good enough to stick through it, but then finally discovering what it is and kind of being on the right path, and also having the experience that you've gone through turn into a passion to help other men. You want to because I don't feel like I'm some pastor or whatever. I just want to just share with guys what happened to me, and hopefully have that help them to develop those kinds of things in their own life, and also just point them to the word, because it's the word ultimately that's changing people. That's the word has the power to change. The word is God himself, So anyway, I'm gonna cut it off there. I appreciate your time, and would you be open to chatting again, man?
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, good.
Yes, sir.
All right, sounds good. Well, then I'll reach out and I'll set up another time. And man, we didn't get the chance to talk about Chicago or anything. That's one of my favorite places. What city in Chicago are you in? You guys sort of in the burbs? Okay.
So if you think of, let's see, how do I do this for your camera? Chicago's on the east side of Illinois.
Yeah.
If you went straight west,
yeah,
all the way to the Mississippi River, I'm on the other side of the state.
Oh, you're down there. Okay. About how far from Chicago? How long?
So about 2.5 hour drive.
Okay, so that's a little bit of a distance, yeah. And normally when we lived there, we lived in Schaumburg. But when I think of Illinois, I think Chicago. Chicago's everywhere, you know what I mean? So
we have one of our men's conferences we do in a suburb called Orland Park.
Yeah, I know that area. Sure. We used to we lived in Schaumburg, but then we moved to Plainfield, which is on the other side. So anyway, we could talk Illinois all day. But also my wife and I are planning another trip there. What is the pizza? It's Illuminati's? Is that the name? Is there a pizza place called?
Blue Malnati's. It's
pizza. Yes. Yeah, right. So anyway, I'm trying to cut it off because we'll keep talking. But listen, man, thank you for your time. And I'll reach out. We'll talk again real soon. All right.
God bless you, brother.
Okay, you too. Thanks, man. Talk to you, Roy. All right. Bye-bye. Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more. Hey, thanks again for tuning in today. And until next time, stay aligned with God's promises and empowered by his word. We'll see you next time.